Borla. I'd have to say to you, Minister Phelan, this was the day when you could have made a name for yourself forever by including Kilkenny in the consideration for city status. Now, I heard Deputy Grealish here and others earlier on talk about the significance of the corporation as it was then, urban council and so on. And I think that they could learn from the experience of Kilkenny City. And it's this, that in an earlier piece of legislation brought in by Noel Dempsey, the destruction of local government started. And as a response to a huge outcry from Kilkenny City, that minister at that time put into the legislation that he would recognise Kilkenny as a city for ceremonial purposes only. And since then, it has been all downhill for local democracy. And that kind of destruction of local government was continued by your colleague when he was a minister, Deputy Hogan. And I would like to think that having gone through local government yourself and having been a member of the County Council, that you would have seen at first hand what Deputy McGrath here described, Michael McGrath, described as the need for local democracy and that pride that people have in local democratic structures. We don't have that now, and you know that well, because you can now see the difference between the county council that you served on and the one that's there now. Nothing to do with members. It has to do with the ability of the members to actually effect change and bring democracy in a real sense to their local area. And when the minister decided that Kilkenny City was no longer a city, that basically was his decision. He dressed it up in terms in the legislation that it looked okay, but actually it was a three-card trick and it wasn't okay. So you know the value of a corporation, an urban council. You know the need in terms of the city. You know what people are demanding in terms of democracy. And like France, we should look to the lower structures of our representative bodies, such as local councils and local city councils. And I want to encourage you to restore the city status to Kilkenny. I want to encourage you to look at the Galways of this country and ensure that central to any reform is the need for a local council, a council in a city, and then a general county council representing the council. That's the way it functioned best. People were able, they knew their local councillors, they were able to approach them directly about issues that affected their lives. Local organisations like IFA, Chamber of Commerce and so on were able to engage with them. The rates were struck and the money was spent wisely. Now, with the changes that have been implemented, there is a huge division between city and county. There is a huge scramble for the funds that are necessary to give life to a city, which is the centre of the economic development of a county, or a strong urban centre that would be supportive of the general economic development of the county in question. And there is also the historic value of Galway, the medieval city. Deputy Grealish described it. I could equally describe Kilkenny City as the medieval capital of Ireland. I could describe the corporation as being, as it was then over the years, central to the economic and social development of not just the city but the county. And we have lost that in the context of the reform of local government. We have lost the direct input in terms of the desire of people to have their local place recognised in a way that reflected their values. And we did it. Every party did it. And they've caused terrible problems in local government. I heard earlier on about, local electoral areas functioning in terms of their administration and the workforce of the council. Local people knowing the staff, who to go to when there was a problem. And that doesn't exist anymore. That doesn't exist anymore. And it has weakened the democratic input of people into their councils. Now, you have in this legislation asking people, do you want a plebiscite, do you want a directly elected mayor? I would say to you that what you should be doing is, in Cork or Dublin, yes, direct them to have a directly elected mayor. And I would say to you that the mayor of the other urban centres and cities should be the leading figure within that democratic structure. They should be the ones that would lead the local councils, that would instill again the pride of people and members in the structures that represent us all. And you have the opportunity in this bill to correct all of that. You say you're going to bring forward amendments. But judging from a headline on the local Kilkenny People some time ago, I thought that this was a done deal. That you would actually do this and restore the corporation or the urban council. And instead what you're doing is you're reinforcing a botched job on councils throughout this country. That's exactly what you're doing. And if you look at it from the financial aspects of it, it doesn't cost much more, or maybe it costs the same, to have a corporation, a mayor, a county council and a chairman, discussing and debating the issues of the county and reaching real decisions. But when I go to a county council meeting now and I sit in the public gallery, I'm struck by the number of reports that they have to do anything. And maybe that's why your colleague can't build houses. The information about housing and everything else in the county or the city is actually held by the local authority. But what we've done is we've outsourced the work to voluntary housing agencies. And now nobody really knows what's happening. And I'm told that an awful lot of the delay is in the context of the department and how they view these applications when they come before them. And there is a delay there. And that's why houses are not delivered. Why don't we just ask ourselves, what happened in the past that we can learn from? In the 50s and the 60s, when there was no money, huge local authority housing estates were built all over the country. People got the opportunity to rent their own home. And following a period, they could buy their own home. And they could aspire to owning their own home. And it was a successful model that delivered. Surely you must be pushed, Minister, to say to the County Managers Association, what are you at that you can't deliver these numbers? You must be tempted to do that. Are you not tempted to ask them why they can't deliver CCTV in conjunction with the guards in Urlingford and County Kilkenny and other places like that? Why is that bureaucratic obstacle there? I would say it's there because the members have been deprived of the right to instruct the county manager or the chief executive as it is now. And you make much play in this bill of, a county manager, it being one person, chief executive. But in Kilkenny, we had a county and city manager for years. And he didn't just run the council effectively and efficiently, Paddy Donnelly, but he promoted Kilkenny. He developed Kilkenny. He supported the mayor and the chairman of the council to achieve what they wanted for themselves. And once you have that model in place and working, you are restoring the pride that people have in their own place, the pride that they have in their own public representatives. And regardless of what criticism you would have of politics, and you know this to be true, the mayor was always respected and supported. And now we have the likes of Galway appealing to you. We have Deputy Fitzmaurice asking you to meet. You came from that background, Minister. And I am encouraging you as a person that's young in politics but has served in many different aspects of political life to take the best of what you've learned from there. And don't allow the officials or the County Managers Association to tell you what to do. You know in your heart and soul what needs to be done. You know that the power has to be tilted from the Chief Executive to the members. And this bill and the conversation that's going on or the debate that's going on in the context of the bill, which goes a little bit beyond the remit of the bill, is actually telling you to do that. I can recall recently in the by-election in Carlow Kilkenny, where Deputy Bobby Aylward was elected. And one of the key issues in the city, when asked about different things, one of them was the restoration of Kilkenny Corporation and reinstating the city status and the position of mayor. And we committed to that on this side of the House. We committed to that as part of that by-election. So if that's to mean anything, I would suggest that young Shane here in front of me should be going across the chamber to you and telling you, as part of the supply and confidence arrangement, we have to deliver on that promise. Otherwise it was a con job on the people. We can't have that in politics, can we? So I actually think there's a lot of scope within this area for you, and there's a lot of things that you can do to change all of what we have today back to some of what we had in the past, to the better part of it, and to restore the type of confidence that's now needed in local government. And I would say in relation to the chief executives, this is how I think it works, and I could be wrong. I'll fix a pothole for you. I might allocate a house to you. I will listen to you carefully. But in return for that, you will vote for this budget that we're putting forward. So you might get your pothole fixed, but you're not administering the budget of the local authority correctly, efficiently, or in the interest of the public that we serve. So the courting of local members of local councils goes on until a majority of those councillors are entrapped in this game of promise and delivery of fixing of potholes and so on, while the bigger picture is left without being addressed. And that is truly what's going on. And I think that you need to speak to those county managers and demand from them a standard and a delivery of services for the public that we represent to the highest order. To the highest order. And it might be no harm if all the political parties in this House were to meet with their councillors and inject a bit of backbone into them to ensure that they acknowledge their own obligations and responsibility and act accordingly. Because that's what needs to be done too, because it's a two-way street. And the people are demanding it. They're asking for it. Like the book of estimates comes out at the end of the year and it's gone through as quick as you'd say a Hail Mary. And the results are very different. You have more hope with the Hail Mary than you have with the book of estimates. So I actually think that you're in a position now that few ministers are in. And I'm not playing political games. I said this to you privately. You are in a position that few ministers are in to leave your mark on that department, to turn it back towards democracy, and to enlighten the members as to their role in that new democratic process. to strengthen the role of the mayor versus the chief executive, to strengthen the role of the chairperson versus the senior executive or the chief executive. I would consider that they're a board and that they should be directing the person that's being paid by the state to do their job. But I see in lots of counties where the mayor or the chairman are down the list in terms of recognition, while the paid official makes it look as if it is his or her domain and they've brought about these wonderful changes. Without the public representatives that we elect, that the public elects, you wouldn't have those changes. But we haven't given them the powers. And I think that that bill could have delivered the powers to them. And I say to you again, when you hear the calls from Deputy Fitzmaurice and Deputy Grealish here to meet and to understand, you don't have to hear the Minister. You know what has to be done. You know what has to be done. And I would say if you had the courage of your own convictions based on a real true experience which you have had in politics, that you could do this. You could do this. Take the advice of your officials. Don't be led by it. Led by your own, be led by your own experience. And give the city status back to Kilkenny as promised, and let us go on with a proper democratic structure. It's now all resting on your shoulders, Minister Phelan.